Yo, what's up guys? Universal Mastery. So what we're going to talk about in today's video is what is shadow work and how do you do it. Now what I do on my channel is I break down the occult sciences and I break them down to a very practical level so that you can use them and apply them in your day-to-day lives. So if you want to know a little bit more about shadow work, how to do it, and what is it exactly, then stay tuned for the rest of this video. Okay, so the first thing I want to say is definitely make sure you go and you check out my Patreon. On my Patreon, I have content where I'm actually performing spiritual practices, and while I'm performing them, I'm teaching you how to do them yourself so that you can apply them in your day-to-day life and get real, actual results. And they are highly geared towards developing your connection to the darker side of the occult. So there's things in the nature of teaching you how to do invocation, which is something you can apply towards any spiritual force you want, but I break it down in the form of doing an invocation of Lucifer, and then I have some other spiritual practices that are more, as I said, geared towards the darker side of the cult. I have a reverse chakra empowerment that is geared towards it's not chakra work in its traditional form, it's going in reverse. So it's actually teaching your body to dissolve the chakras into your system and become a very strong power center, which is very important if you want to develop yourself through the dark side of the occult. And you know, I'll go into that in another video, but I have videos like that. Then I have videos where I do specific ritual summoning of the dark gods to create a specific type of circle. It's called the Circle of the Dragon, which is also known as the Ouroboros, where the dragon's essentially chasing its own tail, but I'm calling all the Qliphotic spirits. So I have videos like that, and I'm teaching you how to do them so that you get 100% success with it, and that if you do it, you're actually going to attune yourself to the darker side of the occult, to the Qliphotic side, which can be very beneficial if you really want to achieve the power, you know, the dark side of the occult, that type of power. So half of the videos are going to be geared towards that. The other half are going to be geared towards educational entertainment. And that's going to be a video that's very similar to this, where you're getting a lot of entertainment out of it, and you're also getting a lot of value at the same time. So where you're going to be able to find the Patreon is in the description. You click that drop down of this YouTube video. It's going to be the first link at the top of the description. It says My Patreon right next to it. That'll take you to this exclusive content that is not on my YouTube channel. Now, in order to gain access to this content, you have to at least be a tier 2 member or up, tier 2. So in order to be a tier 2, it costs $9.95, and that's a reoccurring monthly payment. But if you do the math, that literally comes out to less than $1 a day. And there is absolutely, I stand by this 110%, there is absolutely no reason why you shouldn't be able to afford that with the value that I have on there. Okay, so that's where it's going to be, and I would love to give a special shout out to the top tier members of the Patreon. Their names are going to be mentioned in the parentheses below that first link, and as you go up in tiers, the benefits increase as well, and there's some pretty important benefits on there. So I'm going to let you guys check that out for yourself if that's something you're interested in. So there it is. Other than that, let's go right into this video because ooh, my arm got a mean cramp. I just got out of martial arts. Damn. Sorry, my arm just got a mean cramp. But as I was saying, I want to definitely be able to cover this video as in depth as I can because this is a really important topic. And then also taking it back to the beginning where I was talking about developing yourself towards the darker side of the cult. Well, this is actually going to tie into, and those practices that I have on my Patreon are extremely interconnected with this video and doing shadow work. So a big part of the darker side of the occult, the Qliphotic side of the occult, working with the darker spirits, the more infernal spirits, the spirits that reside in the abyss, the spirits that reside in the void, the spirits that have governance over most of, you could say, the processes of evolution when it comes to Earth and the universe itself, the spirits that go outside of that. So these are really powerful spirits, but they also have a lot to do with doing shadow work and embracing that dark side of your psyche. So I just wanted to make sure there's clarity on that the darker side of the occult definitely is interconnected with doing shadow work. Now let's start this video off practically. So for those of you that are watching this, they're like, okay, I have no idea what shadow work is and I just want to know how to do it. Let's go into what shadow work is, okay? This is going to be beneficial for anybody watching. So I want you to imagine this. Shadow work is the parts of you, it is the part of your being that you repress. So I want you to imagine this. There is a being, there is a spirit inside of you. And that spirit is truly the most powerful aspect of who you are. It is the most powerful aspect of your own individual being. But I also want you to understand that from the very first day you were born, you moved from that spirit that is the most powerful aspect that you are into a physical vessel. Now, part of that deal, part of that transition into moving into a physical body and incarnating here on earth is that you lose consciousness towards you could say the core of who you are, that you are a spirit, that you are that powerful being, that is you. Part of that deal that you make to be here is that you lose touch of that. So that's why when you're a baby, you just need you need a support system, you need people to help you survive. You're just, you're in full reliance on the universe and the people around you and the environment around you to make it, to become older and, learn about who you are. So during that process of being a little child, a little baby, and then moving up to adulthood, okay, going through 10, 15, 18, 20, 25, 30, all the way up to how old you want to go, we could 70, 75, 80, there's indoctrination that takes place. So there are certain experiences that we have, there are certain people that have raised us, that have told us how we should act, told us things that we shouldn't be like, and told us things that we should be like, told us that we shouldn't act like this and that we should act like that. And this applies to every single person that lives here on earth. And this happens in different degrees depending on what your environment is. Okay, depending on what kind of people that you've been surrounded with, depending also on what you essentially have allowed as well. Because essentially, the truth is that it's up to you what you allow in your sphere of influence. So you could have someone all day telling you, this is how you should think, this is how you shouldn't think. You don't necessarily have to agree with that. But I mean, as you're, as I said, a little kid, growing up around people that are telling you, this is how you should think, this is how you shouldn't think, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do, this is successful, this is unsuccessful, this is right, this is wrong. You can understand that it's easier to adopt those beliefs moving from a younger age into adulthood if you're being fed those beliefs in a very consistent, profound way. But once again, as you grow older, let's say you've been told all these things. This is how you should think. This is how you should speak. This is who you are. Let's say you're being told these things by other people and external influence. There comes a point in time where you gain enough understanding, you gain enough wisdom, and you gain enough knowledge that you can make a choice for yourself that says, you know what, I don't agree with that, or I do agree with that. And this goes for everybody. Everyone has this choice no matter what anyone says. So this right now eliminates the victimhood mindset. Oh, it's not fair. These people told me this. If that's you that's saying that, you're full of shit and you're a weak piece. You're a weak piece of shit. So log off this video. This is no longer for you, and unsubscribe from my channel. If you chose the route of, accepting your weaknesses and understanding that you are truly looking for a path of power, you're looking for a path of wisdom and understanding, this is the video for you. Now let's go into what exactly shadow work is. So as I said, when you're born and you're raised with all these beliefs, all that indoctrination, there are certain things that you have been told or you have accepted as truth and you have believed that become a part of you that may contradict what you truly feel and what you truly are to your core, to your spirit. And I want you to understand that let's go behind all the layers. That is where your true self is. So if you had an environment that said, this is how you have to act, and if you don't act like this, then you're going to be frowned upon, or we're not going to accept you. You can't get upset for these situations because in this family, we always make sure everyone's happy. We always make sure no one's arguing. We make sure that maybe you're raised in a family where you're not allowed to show fear. And if you show a little sign of fear, then what's wrong with you? Why are you scared? Toughen up. When fear is normal, but it's just how you react to it. So if you're afraid to show fear, or if you're afraid to express that, that doesn't eliminate the fear. That just builds it up because you feel it and then you throw it away rather than just feeling it and letting yourself experience the fear. That doesn't mean you need to be like, I'm afraid, guys, I'm afraid, but you want to feel it. It's okay to feel fear. Don't let someone tell you it's not okay to feel fear, anxiety, depression. It's okay to feel these things. You're supposed to feel them. You don't have to let them control you though. You don't have to let fear, you don't have to be like, I'm afraid, guys, or I'm depressed, or, I have anxiety, guys, everyone, I just want you to know, you feel it. Just feel it for yourself. It's for you to feel. It's for you to process because that's how you process it. But once again, going back to what I'm saying, let's say you're raised in an environment where it's not okay to feel fear. It's not okay to have anger. It's not okay to be who you truly are to your core, your true self, your spirit. So your spirit feels a certain way. Your core, your true self has a certain belief system. But let's say your environment has taught you that that is not acceptable. And let's say that this is most likely what happens because this is a whole system that we're in, a whole matrix. Most people will be against your spirit. Most people will be against your core and against your true self. What that means is that most people's spirit, when they begin to express that and say how they really feel, they get immediate pushback. They get immediate restriction. They get immediate, you get back in line. No, that's not fair. You can't say that. That's not true. That's not what we believe. That's not, this isn't you. You're like this. Remember, you're that nice person. You're the person that we like. You're not that, when in reality, your spirit may be more ruthless, or your spirit may be more assertive, or your spirit may be more whatever it is. That's something that you have to figure out for yourself, and that's what shadow work does. So what we do, moving from from the day we're born all the way up to where you're at now watching this video, we have built an identity. We have built an identity that has been created from our ego that gives us an idea of what works for us, a certain way to act based off of a personality. That identity is connected to a personality, which is a way that you act that meshes well with your environment. So when you take on this personality and when you accept this identity as you, your environment treats you a little bit better. But just because your environment may accept you more or treat you better does not mean that you feel better on the inside. What's really going on is you're actually repressing certain primordial feelings and intentions that you truly have because you're trying to form this, you're trying to fit into this identity, which is your personality. And the more that you think this identity that's based off your ego, and the more you think that this personality is your true self, and the more you think this is who you are, the more your shadow starts to build. So the shadow is many things, but I'm gonna speak on two things for sure. The shadow is an energetic body that you have. So a lot of people talk about having a light body or an aura, like a very clear aura, and we have that as well. But there is also a part of this aura that is dark, and I don't know why people don't talk about this, but this is a real thing. Okay, this shows me that there's a lot of fools out here that think they know what they're talking about when they don't know at all. But we have a shadow body, which is a part of the aura. And the shadow body, well, you can actually see it on people if you've tuned your senses enough to that. And the goal is you want to be able to see that around somebody. So you'll essentially see this dark layer around somebody, and then you'll see the lighter layer on top of that. That's a powerful person. That's someone who's done shadow work and has integrated their shadow. Otherwise, the shadow is going to build up. So the more that you repress your true core emotions and your true spirit, because you believe this is you, that you believe this is your identity, you believe your personality is you, The more you identify with that and the more that you suppress your primordial self, your true desires, your true expression, your core, the more you repress that, the stronger your shadow gets. And the shadow, as I said, is this dark energy body that we have. And you can see it if you do shadow work and integrate the shadow. If you don't do shadow work, if you continue to repress these emotions, these feelings, these intentions, these ideas, and these beliefs and actions, the more you repress it, the more you're once again not integrating the shadow. And the shadow is directly connected to the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is literally what rules your entire reality, and it rules your entire level of self-control. So the shadow, being directly connected to your subconscious, will grow so big if you're not integrating it, and it will possess you and take over your life. And your life will become very chaotic. You will find yourself very stressed out. You'll find yourself extremely unsatisfied. You'll start developing illness. You'll start seeing your reality around you start to crash and start to work against you, almost like there is a curse on you, or almost like you just seem to have bad luck. If you find yourself getting into patterns that constantly end in the same way, you get into a relationship, it ends like this, and it happens over and over and over. You do this certain thing, the outcome's always chaos. If this is you, if this is happening to you, this is because you need to do shadow work and your shadow has not been integrated properly. That's okay, because you can always do shadow work, but this is what happens when you don't integrate your shadow. So your subconscious, being this dark aspect of yourself, being this dark aura that has not been integrated, so it's not showing on you, it's all in you, it's in your subconscious, it rules you. So it strengthens this identity of, this is who I am, this is my personality, and it strengthens that at the same time as creating a reality of chaos for you. And once again, you'll just notice things don't go your way. It will literally feel like there is a curse on you, and things always end up in patterns and cycles that have the same exact outcome. So in order to change that, you have to start to do shadow work. Okay, so doing shadow work, so this is okay because a lot of us have built this identity up. Most of us, all of us mostly have had this happen to us to a certain degree. Some people, shadows are stronger than others because they've identified with this identity longer. And those kinds of people, when you see them in your real life, you're gonna see that they have they are on the verge of insanity. Like they have extreme mental illness. They have developed extreme victim mentality. They are literally almost like these walking zombies that are, you can almost tell that they're not them. They are not alive. These people are fully possessed by their shadow, which is chaotic in its nature. And they are irrational. They do not have the ability to operate off of logic. They are now out of touch with their intuition because they're identifying with the ego, which is what they think is them and they think is their true self. And it's not that it's like easy to fall into that. You've got to fight for an identity. You've got to fight for a personality. Life hits you to a certain degree where the shadow's powerful. And I'm going to get into this, the other side of the shadow, the beneficial side of the shadow and what it can do for you and the power that lies within it. But the truth is that when people fight for their identity, they fight for their personality rather than necessarily feeling bad for them. Like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, this person, their shadow took over and I feel bad for that person. You got to understand that the person who has let themselves get to that point where their shadow has just completely taken over, has completely manifested chaos in their reality, that person, every single person, has tons of opportunity to break their identity and break their ego, break their personality, and then begins to start doing shadow work. Now it takes courage and it takes a level of strength and willpower to just say, you know what? I'm gonna fucking do this. But everyone has the opportunity to do it. That's what the shadow does. No, there's not necessarily anybody different than the next person. We're not equal though, because some people take initiative and some people don't. Those who take initiative initiate. Those who don't take initiative get run and thrown into the meat grinder of chaos and live in hell. and suffer. Okay? Understand that. This makes us not equal. Like people talk about we're all equal. It's true, we all have the opportunity to reach the same amounts of power, but not everyone is equal because not everyone takes that opportunity. Just like the person, as I'm saying, who lets their shadow take over their life. And it's because they didn't have that strength and they didn't have that willpower to say, you know what, I'm just going to fucking go into the unknown and I'm going to transform and I'm going to do this because I can tell, I can intuitively sense that this is going to be in my best interest and in the best interest for those around me. And when you do shadow work, that's what happens. It is in the best interest for society in general. So these people are really doing a disservice that don't decide to do shadow work, and they pay the consequences for that. So that's why you don't really have to feel bad for them, but you want to be aware of it, okay? So everyone has that opportunity to do shadow work. Just remember that. But in order to do shadow work, you have to recognize the chaos that is manifesting in your life from your identity, from your personality that you may think is you. And you have to take a step back and say to yourself, there is something running my life right now, and it's chaos. It's chaotic that's running my life. And this chaos is directly stemming from a state of mind that I am holding on to, or from a personality or a belief or an identity, a group of people that I'm holding on to that's fueling this chaotic state of mind that's strengthening my identity and my personality. Some of you are going to watch this and you're going to be like, what's wrong with having a strong identity? This is what's wrong with having a strong identity. The more you identify with something, the less likely you are to be able to transition into the next phase of evolution that your spiritual, mental, physical, emotional body needs to go through. We change as beings. To be formless is the key. To shift, to flow. What did Bruce Lee say? Be like water. When you identify with something, you're solid. And when you hold on to something that's not healthy for you and it's time to change, it's time to go with nature, just like the moon changes. The moon goes through different phases. We have all the planets that go through different phases. We are directly connected to them on an energetic level. And there is a science to all of this, which is what I'm not going to go into right now, but there is. So when all these changes take place, we're not different than that. We're connected to that. We change as well. The more you hold on to that, and your intuition says, okay, it's time to move on. No, I don't want to move on. Your shadow gets stronger. The stronger your shadow gets, the more chaos is going to manifest and the more you're going to suffer and the more you're going to literally live in a living hell. So you've got to take a step back. You got to realize, you know what? This is what's fucking me up. You know what? This is the state of mind that's screwing me up. This is the group of people that's messing me up. This is the belief system that's messing me up. This is what's manifesting chaos in my life. This is the thing that's making me suffer. Let me just drop it then. Let me drop this friend group. Let me drop this relationship. Let me drop this belief system. Let me drop this addiction that I have right now, right now, to experience myself. Rather than seeing myself or fueling my identity and personality with these external things that I'm attaching to, let me drop them, let them go so I can experience myself. And when you do that, when you drop the identity, when you drop the personality and you go to that place to experience your core, to experience your true self, which is something you won't experience at first because it takes time from doing shadow work to then get to your true self. But when you experience your core and your spirit, your true being, when you experience that, like when you start the process, you're going to feel emotions of like, what the fuck is this? You're going to feel emotions of like, this is not comfortable. You're going to feel emotions probably of depression. You're going to feel anxiety. You're going to feel fearfulness. You're going to feel everything that you don't want to feel because that's what processing does. Rather than holding on to an identity and trying to mask these things and push them further into your shadow, push them deeper into your subconscious now coming to consciousness, coming to the forefront and bridging a gap. And now you get to really express these things. And now you get to really feel them. And that's uncomfortable at first, but this is not a path that is easy. And it shouldn't be easy. As a society, we've been sold a big fucking lie that everything should be handed to us. Everything should be easy. Walk through the park, put a smile on your face. We should all just be equal and smile at each other and get along. Yes, it sounds great, but that's not the reality we live in. Look at the fucking jungle. Look at nature. There are animals that will destroy other animals because they need to feed their family. And those animals they don't have the ability to go against nature because it's in their nature. We forget that we are operating on this same primordial nature that the animals in the jungle are operating on. Yes, we have intelligence, but that doesn't mean that we don't have that animalistic nature as well. And because we have that intelligence, we need to do it the smart way by doing shadow work and feeling these negative emotions so that they can actually process and we can actually step into power. Now, as you do shadow work, you feel those experiences. You're going to recognize, once again, it's going to feel uncomfortable. You may get to a point though where it starts to feel good because you're no longer holding this personality or you're holding this front or this identity. So you're no longer having to hold this image up of who you are. You're no longer proving to people, this is who I am, guys. This is who I am. Trust me, I'm this. You are now just being you, and people can start to actually like you for who you are. But remember, that's not what the goal is when you're doing shadow work. The goal is to love you for who you are. It's not about other people, but that will happen later down the road as you continue to do shadow work, which there's no time limit on. This is something that just happens until you liberate yourself. So it may take a while until you get to your true self, which is literally a process that you have to go through of doing shadow work consistently over and over and over till you literally get to a state of mind that is in full alignment with your spirit and with who you are as a person. It is literally like the essence of self-love. You really understand, this is who I am, and I'm not worried about what the external world thinks about me as long as I know I'm being authentic with myself and I'm expressing myself in that manner. Not to prove a point, not to do anything that this person, I want them to think of me like this. For you, for your expression, for your truth, for your beingness, okay? That's where your true self lies. And once again, once you get to that point, that's when you experience your true self. But it takes shadow work to get to your true self, to get to your core. As you do shadow work, right, it's not all bad. As you get to your true self, the closer you get to your true self, your shadow becomes a power. I said it. Your shadow becomes a power, okay? It becomes an aspect of yourself. It becomes your ally. So in the beginning, it's manifesting chaos in your life. As you do shadow work and you integrate that in you, all those negative emotions, you bridge that gap from your subconscious to your conscious, and you become your true self more in line. Your shadow becomes an actual ally for you. If you think of it as a separate entity that is your actual spirit, the more you do that shadow work and find your true self, the more it comes to you and into you and works in your favor. So rather than it being extremely powerful in controlling your life without your free will or even without your consciousness, it's now working for you under your conscious direction. Okay, and this happens after a while. This isn't something that's going to happen like that, but this is what will eventually happen. Your shadow will work for you, meaning it will manifest situations that are exactly in alignment with your self-development, and it won't be extremely crazy situations in regards to when you first do shadow work. So when you first begin shadow work, you're going to find that your subconscious has a lot of repressed shit, and you're going to manifest a lot of shit that you do not want to experience. It's literally going to manifest all the things that you repress. So all the things that you pushed away are going to be the exact situations that will come in your day-to-day life, and that's what you'll experience. As you go through those situations, maintaining yourself, as in not attaching, but experiencing, feeling, and then letting go, or even expressing it. If you feel that level of anger, express it. Don't be afraid to lash out. But if you feel that anger, you don't want to lash out, feel the anger. Be aware of the anger, then you can let it go. Either way, you're going to integrate that power. So after you have integrated your shadow enough, and once you start to get much more closer to your true self, that's when you'll start to recognize that your shadow starts to work in your benefit. Now, what are some ways that you can tell that your shadow is working in your benefit? Let's say this, for example, and your shadow, as I said, being directly connected to your subconscious, is also connected to source. Okay, source you can think of as the spiritual energy that connects everything. Source is what nature is. Okay. And your shadow is directly connected to the darker spirits of reality. So you start to gain favor from the darker spirits. Now, this is something that you may not be aware of, but either way, it's a process that happens. And if you are aware of it, then you can take full advantage of it, like I do as a black magician. But once again, not everyone's going to do that. But it's true, it happens. But as you do the shadow work, the more in touch and the more in line you get with source as well, your shadow becomes, as I said, your ally. So let's say, for example, you're going about your day-to-day life and there's somebody in your path that is trying to give you a hard time, trying to do something to stop you, trying to do something that's going to move you, right? Something that's going to throw you off, going to try and attach you back to your old self and get you to hold on to those identities again, right? Let's say someone tries to do that. If you maintain your core, if you maintain the realization, you know what, I'm not going to attach to this, I'm going to feel this, and I'm still going to maintain who I am, which is tough, because when you have someone that triggers old emotions in you that were connected to your old identity and your old personality, it wants to provoke that old self back. It wants to bring that back. But if you can still maintain your core and maintain your spirit and your realization, your awareness, which is why awareness is so powerful, but your awareness of, you know what, I'm not going to go back to that. I'm going to just feel this experience. I'm going to do the shadow work and then integrate this, this person that's challenging me. I'm going to integrate this and I'm going to maintain who I am. What you'll recognize is that people like that get removed very quick. So I'm just going to be honest with you guys. I've had experiences where people tried to stop me when I was doing shadow work and they got in a car accident the next day. There's been time, and it's because I refused to go back to my old self and they pissed me off. They were purposely trying to stop me. And this may have been part of the path, right? I believe it was part of the path. I mean, I'm a black magician, so the destruction is a part of that path. So this person was trying to throw me off, and I recognized the experience. I recognized that I'm not going to let them move me, and I directed energy towards that person. I said, don't fuck with me. This is what's, don't fuck with me. This is what's going to happen. And next thing you know, they got in a car accident, right? And guess what? They didn't treat me the same way again. And the same thing happened with my friend. Like literally, we were going to a personal training school at the time, and it happened with him too. And we were like the closest people in the class, and he did the same thing with another person in our class. Which is very interesting. Me and him were in sync. But things like that can happen. And that will happen enough to the point where you'll start to develop an awareness of what I'm saying. So when people try to stop you and you maintain your shadow, you'll realize that they get removed. Something will happen to them. Something bad will happen to them because your shadow is now your ally. Your shadow being directly connected to source, being directly connected to the subconscious. Every human being has a subconscious. Every human being is a part of source. You're either connected to it or okay, there's different levels. You're either connected to it, aware you're connected to it, and trying to develop yourself through that connection, or you're connected to source, unaware that you're connected to source, don't know what source is, and still let your personality and identity rule your life. So if someone's in that identity trying to stop you on your path, you're connected to source, you're recognizing it, you're doing your shadow work, whatever, you're aware of the person trying to give you a hard time, that person will get removed very quick. Now there's many different ways that person can get removed. It'll happen the way it needs to happen. Now your shadow is working for you. Once again, you're coming more so into your true self. And there is a way to enhance this process through black magic. I'm not going to go into that in this video, but there is a way to do that. I would recommend becoming a part of my Patreon if you want to start advancing yourself on that level. We can walk through that process and I'll tell you exactly how to do that. But there are videos that I talk about it on my YouTube channel. You'll find it. If that's you, you'll find it. But yeah, so as you come more so into your true self, you'll realize that life starts manifesting the way that you need it to manifest. So now your shadow is your ally. Now things are manifesting exactly in your favor, meaning you will manifest situations in your life that are exactly what are supposed to be in your life to improve you as a person. So your shadow is you, it's your spirit, and it knows what you want, and it knows what you came here to achieve. And it wants to help you achieve that. Now that you've integrated it, you have that black shadow body around you that's integrated. Now it's empowering you. Now you've also, what you've done, whether you're aware of it or not, you've gained favor of some of the darker spirits of the occult. Now they're also working for you because they see you doing shadow work. They want that. Okay, you're increasing their power as well. And once again, there's ways to empower that. But as you're doing that, your shadow is becoming more of your ally. The more things that you're actually creating and you're bringing into your life that are in your interest when it comes to your own evolution and your own growth, your own spiritual development. Because remember, the shadow is connected to source as well. Source is nature. Source is what takes you through what you need to go through to become your most empowered self. And as you're doing the shadow work, your source, your shadow isn't just source though. It is a separate entity, but it is connected to source. All things are to some degree connected to source. But your shadow is an intelligent entity within its own right. And when you have that as your ally, it's going to create exactly what you need to go through in order to reach your highest level of development. And that creates a whole level of confidence within itself because you realize that as you're doing that shadow work and you're coming more in line with who you are, you're realizing the power that's coming from that. And you're realizing that nothing can actually stop you. Everything is in your best interest. No matter, like, remember, when people try to stop you, they will end up getting removed. But this doesn't undermine the fact that doing shadow work is intense and it's not an easy process. And the reality is 98% of people, this is a number that I just made up, but I believe it to be very accurate, are not doing shadow work. 98%. Think about that. That's out of 100 people, that's like 95 people out of 100 people are not doing shadow work. And for the 5 people that are doing shadow work, there's different degrees to it. So some people may do a little bit, tiny bit, just to get a little bit of results. And then other people are going all the way, like myself. Okay? I'm on a path to power. I want power. That's what I'm in it for. Okay? I'm here to do big things. I'm here to change the fucking world for myself. And it's gonna, it's just gonna change the world in general. And that's what that's what I want to do. Yeah, whatever I have to go through to achieve that is what I'm willing to go through. And there's not many people that have that mindset. Okay, and that's why a lot of people don't experience this explanation of doing shadow work that I'm explaining on this video. But there are some people out there that are. So it is what it is. But just remember, as you do the shadow work, you gain more power. You come into a much deeper level of alignment of who you truly are, what your spirit really is. And if you're doing shadow work on the level that I'm explaining to a very deep level, I guarantee you will come across the occult 110%, and you will probably engage in some form of ritual, some form of deep spiritual practices if you're doing the real deep shadow work, which once again, so many people are not doing. Okay, but this is just a fact. Okay, so that's what shadow work is. And that's how you do it. You got to start with dropping the identity, dropping the personality, dropping the things you're holding on to, and letting those things fuel your identity, letting those things make you feel, if this thing's making you feel comfortable, right? If this thing's making you feel like you exist, or this is what your comfort is, this is what makes you you, this belief, this way of acting so that you get accepted, you got to drop that shit. You got to grow the fuck up. Your birthright is power. Your birthright is stepping into your full potential. If you want to live this life, doing what you're doing, living in chaos and not reaching your potential, but always tiptoeing on that edge of, oh, well, I experienced something that's okay, but then I go right back into chaos and I suffer for this amount of time, and then, oh, this was kind of fun, and then you go right back, then fucking stay in that bullshit. Stay in that cycle. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't change my life, really, it doesn't. But if you feel like that's not you, right? If you feel like you want to embark on this journey, which I feel like more people are starting to become aware of and actually taking that step, then fucking do it. And a great way to initiate intense and deep shadow work is going to be getting into the darker side of the occult, which is doing invocations of the Ars Goetia, then starting to study the Qliphoth, right? Coming from the Tree of Life, start to study the Qliphoth and the Qliphothic gods, because there is a systematic process that you can initiate through that really brings you into alignment with your shadow. Much deeper stuff that I'm not going to go into in this video, but there's a real science to all of this. There is a real science to all of this. And once again, it's a process. It's a very ancient process. And when you get through that process, you are in a full place of power. Okay? And there are a lot of people that have completed this, but when I say a lot, I'm talking about in life in general. But in regards to the majority of society, a tiny little sliver have completed this, right? A tiny little sliver. And for the people that have completed it, that information is not really out there. It's not out there to the public, okay? It's just starting to get out there. It's just starting to be expressed and in its proper way, not sugar-coated, the reality of it. Not, oh, this is going to be something easy. You just work with these spirits and it's all going to go the way it needs to. This is a process of dealing with insanity. This is a process of losing yourself completely to find yourself. This is a process of walking into a pitch black room and being one, or understanding darkness and being with your subconscious, feeling the fear, feeling the anxiety, feeling the emotion, feeling the pain, feeling the suffering, to understand it and turn it into something different for yourself, like power. Okay? So other than that, that's where I'm going to wrap this video up, guys. Hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Come down, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, because I'm posting videos as often as I can. And once again, the Patreon, if you go to the description, it's going to be the very first link at the top. It says my Patreon right next to that link. Then go to the second link below. It's going to take you to my Facebook community. On my Facebook community, when you click that, there's going to be a pinned post that says private group here. Click that, request to join, and I'll add you into the private group. Once I get 50 people in there, I'm going to be posting consistently in the form of written content and in the form of pictorial quotes. So other than that, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day or night wherever you are, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.